welcome Tara to the show.
Thank you so much for having me again. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah, I know. It's been almost a year now since we've talked, and your last book, and now this new book, Wild Habits. I'm so excited. I've read through a lot of it, and I'm very, very inspired. So tell us all, why Wild Habits? What's the title all about?
The title is, so WILD is an acronym. It stands for willingness, intuition, love, and discipline. And they're the 4-step method to break any bad habit that's not serving you and turn it into a habit that really propels your life in the direction of your dreams. I think the inspiration for the book, after, we spoke about Cured by Nature the last time I was on, and which came out in 2016. And I think the number one takeaway from people was like, this is amazing. It's got great advice. I've applied the advice to my life. I've seen great changes. And then I would hear from people 2 or 3 months later that were like, I fell off the wagon. What do I do? And so for me, I felt like, okay, I gave people the why. Okay, here's why pharmaceutical drugs are dangerous. Here's why I came off 14 of them. Here's what I replaced them with, right? But I feel like people needed the how of like, okay, it's 7 years later. How are you still not taking any pharmaceutical drugs? And how are you still replacing things naturally, and what are you doing today? And I realized that it had been this same method that I had used and that I had helped clients use and family and friends over the years. And I just felt like I had to give people the tools, So that's what inspired me to write Wild Habits after Cured by Nature.
Wow. And how long did it take you to write this book?
Like a year and a half, I would say. Yeah.
Wow. It's definitely a process trying to get your whole kind of life out there. I know. So the book, basically, the beginning is kind of a little bit of your story, but I know it's not nearly as in-depth as the first book. So we won't go into your story too much because we have a whole other interview. You guys can go watch about that. But basically, a lot of the rest of the book is kind of, like you said, the how. So I really got attracted to the part where you talked about the bad habits versus the good habits. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And so I kind of wanted to go through some of the not best habits, or the harmful habits, as you call it in your book. So we won't go through all of them. There's a whole list in there, and I was like shocked by how many harmful habits there are. But one I did want to talk about was procrastination. So that one really kind of hit me hard. How do you define this, and how do you know as a person, like, how do you know when you're procrastinating versus just being tired or doing, being lazy or something like that?
Right? I think that's a really good question. I love how you're like, I want to ask you questions you've never been asked before, because that's why I'm really excited about this interview, because no one's ever asked me that before. So what does procrastination look like? I really think so that's why intuition is part of the method, right? Because we need to be willing to recognize, okay, what's not working. And then you have to use your intuition to figure out, okay, based on what's not working, what can I do that is working? And I think intuition is a really big part of the difference between I'm procrastinating and I actually need to take the day off. I think your heart and your soul know the difference. I think your gut and your intuition know the difference between this is me binge watching The Handmaid's Tale because I'm sick and don't feel well, or like I should be doing 20,000 other things instead. And listen, we're all a little guilty of binge watching The Handmaid's Tale, but I think there's times and places, if you're doing it at 7 o'clock in the morning when you had things on your to-do list, rather than you've made time at night before bed or something to do something that looks like procrastination, then it's no longer procrastination because you got everything done. And so I think it's a huge part of it is just being honest with ourselves, and intuition is a part of self-honesty and self-trust that I think a lot of us either forget we all have, or we don't tune into, or it's kind of when people tell us to stop using our imagination, we also stop using our intuition, right? And that's pretty early on in life. It's like before you are a teenager, people are like, hey, wake up. But really, if you don't stay woke to what's going on in your gut and what your gut is telling you, like nothing else you're going to do is going to make sense after a while.
Yeah, I think society has a way of kind of like trying to push that out of us. So it's hard to consistently like bring that back to yourself.
Well, especially because it also sounds crazy a little bit when you're doing, like the other day, I had to tell my assistant, like, no, we got to turn back around because I got to say something to that person. And it's just like, sometimes it just is what it is and you can't like deny it. And I don't know why, you know what I mean? I don't know why I had to listen in that moment, but I'm not like, my big takeaway even from my own work is to continue to listen to myself no matter what. And I don't know why, but I also know that the more I do it, the more the answers for why come to me. So it's there's always a reason that your gut is screaming at you.
And then another one that reached out to me was hate towards others. So let's talk about that for a minute. Like, how does it have to be a consistent like hate towards other, or can you hate a few people here and there for something really bad that they've done, or how does that work?
So I think it's a little bit of both, right? You don't want to like, I think a part of it is biological, like you're supposed to have feelings of like, no, this person is not right for my life, for sure. But I think when you become consumed with it, when it's more than just, okay, cool, I'm moving on, and it becomes like something that you're really focused on and you keep bringing up and you keep bringing up for yourself and you can't move on from, that's, and a lot of people are, struggle with this. Like it's very, especially when it comes to family members and people, you can't just be like, okay, bye. And you really hate them. Like I totally get it. But I also think a part of it is the more you work on yourself and you work on forgiveness and you work on forgiving yourself and forgiving other people, the less that hate shows up. So hate might at least start dissipating to a strong dislike, and then, but you spend less time on it, right? It's more like, okay, there's only so much I can do. I can't change this person, right? I can't, and I also can't really let them affect my life, because if they do, then like they kind of win, and for what? You're not changing them. They're not changing anything. So I think just a part of it is like recognizing, do I hate a politician because they put some policy in that like I really don't agree with? Because that's more like, yeah, you can hate the individual person, but that's more like it really is at the end of the day a reflection of your own beliefs. What you're hating is that somebody doesn't agree with you, or someone's doing something that you feel like is hypocritical or whatever. And that's it really at the end of the day breaks down to your own belief system and what you care about. And so for me, it's more like when I find myself getting angry about things, I just do my best to change how they work, right? Like, and I think turning it almost into a self-empowerment thing rather than like ooh, this person fucking annoys me so much, what am I gonna do with this energy? Like, well, you already have that feeling, you might as well turn it into something good, right? So I think that's really where the method comes into play of like, okay, what are the next steps? Okay, well, you need to be willing to recognize what's going on. You need to use your intuition to find out what the next step is. You need to use your love, self-love, and love for others to truly forgive yourself or anyone else, right? And then you need to have the discipline to do that over and over and over again until it becomes a new habit. And forgiveness is where you go first rather than hate. And so do I feel like strong feelings towards others are necessary? Yes, but I feel like hating others is a habit that we really need to break because it doesn't serve us.
And what about excessive sexual activity? That one kind of reached out to me, and I was like, this is so interesting, because especially with couples, like, is it just bad if you have sex too much, or are you talking about just random different partners? Or I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm like really glad you brought it up. It's so funny, of all the interviews I've done, no one has been like, okay, let's talk about the individual things you pointed out. So, and I'm super happy to get into them because I really did think in depth about them before I wrote them all down as bad habits. And I think this is one we see a lot more now than we used to with like dating apps and things. I think it's just really hard. When I talk to my girlfriends and, I'm dating for the first time in like a really long time, and I think it's just really it was crazy when I first talked to my girlfriends about it, because most of what they were telling me was like, well, I'm going out on 4 dates in a day and I'm having sex with 2 of these people, and like, or I'm just seeing this guy because we have like great sexual chemistry and stuff, which is, listen, don't get me wrong, nothing individually wrong with either of those things. But when you're using excessive sexual activity as a distraction, when really at the end of the day, all these people want a husband, right? And it's like, well, then why are you having sex with 2 people in one day? Because I highly doubt you're going to end up marrying either of them. So I think when it becomes a distraction, right, when it becomes something it's either not with one partner, or it becomes dangerous because you're not thinking about what you're doing. I don't think there's anything wrong when you get in a new relationship and you're like all over each other. Although that can be like, you remember being 15, how many like math tests did you not study for because you had like a crush on a boy? Like,
yeah, so true. Even now, like even without sex, my husband takes priority over so many things. So it's like the care and love that you have for someone. It's like, how much do you put into that versus how much is it like hurting you because you're not focusing on other things? I don't know.
How much is it serving you and how much is it harming you? Exactly. And even relationships, I've seen people who are, very, very happily married, but that's all they have. And it's like, well, if something happens to your partner, God forbid, like, what are you going to do? Because that's your whole world and self-worth. And so I feel like working on ourselves before we start dating or want to attract a partner, not only does it work better because we know who we are, so we're attracting somebody based off of who we are and not fitting the mold for someone else, but it works better because at the end of the day, you have yourself, and if something happens to that person, you're not going to fall apart in a way that you would if that was your whole entire world. And so especially with excessive sexual activity, like, I'm not a prude by any means, but I just feel like a lot of us lose, like when we're dating especially, we lose sight of, and listen, like women it's been a long time for women to even get to this point where we can openly talk about the fact that we're dating multiple people at the same time and like have different sexual partners. And like, that was not, I mean, other than like the hippie revolution times, like women were not talking about it. It was, especially when I grew up, it was like, I mean, because I went to Catholic school, and it was like, if you had more than one crush on more than one person, you were like a slut. You know what I mean? So if you looked at a boy, you were a slut. So I love that we're able to have these open conversations and dialogues, but I also think like pop culture is setting a really bad precedent. Like, there's like Bachelor Nation, like there's no way you can actually date 25 people at once and like find the person you're supposed to marry, like especially when people are filming it. So I don't know what, because there's only so open you can be, right? So I think we're kind of, pop culture is setting this weird precedent of like, date all the people and have all the sex and don't think about it. And it's like, well, maybe think about it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. It's intense, and it's like how much to listen to that versus how much to like think on your own and do your own things. It's just so kind of like sexually confusing now. I don't know. Maybe we bring back the old school romance, like men opening the doors for us and things like that. I don't know.
Well, that'll get us into bed faster. So it's like, let's give and take.
So what about complaining without taking action to change the situation? This is something I catch myself doing a lot, and I know probably a lot of people do. So I guess kind of like, how do you stop in that moment, or I guess before you complain, and try to like catch yourself and make a new habit out of that?
I think it's more, well, like, catching yourself is one thing, right? Before you say it. But I think even saying it out loud sometimes is the best way to catch yourself, because you're like, ew, did I just say that? Like, what? So there's nothing wrong with like, I think saying it, as long as you do catch yourself, because after a while you just won't say it anymore. I think that, and then because it becomes an actual real mentality shift once you start asking what the solution is, right? Like when we complain, we're focused on the problem. If we weren't focused on the problem, we'd have nothing to complain about. We'd be talking about the solution. And so I feel like kind of switching that mentality when you do find yourself getting frustrated about things, just to ask yourself, what can I do to change this? Because normally there is something. Like when I just did my petition to save the Torrey Pines here in San Diego, like my number one thing that people came to me and said when I was doing the petitions and going door to door and at the meetings and talking to people was like, I didn't know this was up to us. And so many things are up to us as citizens that, you know, politicians, they've been elected and they're great, but like, they don't know what we want unless we tell them. As far as they're concerned, we want everything to look like Dubai and New York, because that's like been set as the precedent of like what everyone thinks a cool city should look like, but that's not what everybody wants. And so I feel like just finding out what the solutions are to things rather than focusing on the problem is really the only way to grow as a person, and the only way your mindset's going to grow, and the only way your problems are going to get solved, right? Because if you focus on one thing and complain about it and don't change it, chances are that you're doing that with a lot of other things in your life, and personal problems and things that could very easily be solved if you were focused on the real root cause of what's going on and then the solution behind that.
Yeah. So instead, in your book of all the bad habits, you list several wild habits. So tell me more about some of these, and mainly, is it possible to do them here in San Diego? Like, you put dancing on there. So where can you dance? And if you're scared, like, what do you do?
Ooh, I went to, what's the name of the night? There's like a nightclub in San Diego that I went to for the Spin. Is it Spin?
Okay.
That I went to for the first time. It was just like a night of EDM, and I just went out dancing, and it was like, I didn't drink, and it was like the best thing ever. It really was so amazing to just get out and just like move your body and not feel like the whitest person on the planet. But I also I share on my Instagram stories of my morning dancing and just things that like help me get my body moving, because I don't know if people know why I do it, but for me, every time I see myself dancing, I'm just like, a doctor told me for a really long time I wasn't going to be able to do this. And so to do it is the testament to me of like, okay, not only does it make me feel better, but I was told for a really long time that all of this was impossible and I would never be able to move this way. And because I have scoliosis, doctors wanted to fuse my spine together and put like metal rods in my spine, right? And had I done that surgery, I definitely wouldn't be able to do it. And I'm like double jointed, hyper flexible. So putting metal rods in my spine really would have been bad, because there's things I've been able to do to heal that most people really wouldn't be able to do, because their body is not as flexible or not as like prone to, like, if I do an exercise for 6 months, my body will start to respond in a way that most people's bones or whatever like wouldn't do. And so we're all individualistic, and it's not until we start taking our power back that we start to figure out what works to heal us, not what a doctor has told us will work blanket across the board for everybody, because all of our health is completely different. And so some of my favorite wild habits are just like reading and going on a walk and going hiking or going to the beach. I mean, we live on a coastal beach town. Like, go to the beach. It's free. The beach is not free in New York. You have to pay. You gotta pay every time you want to go. Like, this is state protected land. Like, just go and enjoy it, because, I mean, especially if you live in San Diego, you should consider yourself so lucky, because so many of these things are available to you. And
where do you like to hike the most?
I love Torrey Pines, because it's the beach and it's the trees and it's the mountains, but I mean, I'll hike anywhere. There's like a nice little hiking trail right in my backyard I take the dogs on, and there's one behind Torrey Pines High School. I used to love this, where they're building the highway now in Encinitas. That was on nationally protected swampland that no one was supposed to walk on, but for some reason now they're building a highway on it. Anyway, don't ask me. Was one of my favorite hikes in San Diego, but I don't think we're allowed out there anymore.
Oh no. And what about practicing meditation?
So, I mean, I was just at the Self-Realization Fellowship this week. That's one of my favorite places to go and practice. It's totally free, and if you want to go to a service there, it's totally free in the morning and afternoon. If you need like a little inspiration or a brush up on how to do it or what to do. Meditation is one of my absolute favorite wild habits, because, and I have a whole chapter in the book called Meditation, Your Secret Superpower, where I cite, scientific studies that prove that meditation has helped people cure cancer and form gamma rays, which help ward off cancer cells. And unblocked arteries, before they were going to go have heart surgery. Like meditation has been able to do that. And so I feel like it's a very valid alternative that so many people forget that we all possess the ability to do. And the one thing I love about it is it doesn't matter who you are. Like I have friends who are handicapped and who are in wheelchairs, and so I feel really kind of bad when a lot of my suggestions are like, go to the beach, go on a walk. But the one thing we can all do is fucking meditate. Doesn't matter if you're like in a wheelchair or not, you can still do it. And so and that will take your mind and your imagination to places that you really did not know were possible. Like the very first time I meditated, I figured out why I had anxiety. The very, very first time, like in the first 30 seconds, because I was focusing on my breathing for the first time, and I realized my breathing is very panicked. That is probably why I have panic attacks like every other day. So, and it was not until I took that moment to focus on my breath that I realized that my breath was the cause of a lot of my problems. And then I had the solution too, because I'd been singing and going to voice lessons for a really long time. So I was like, ooh, well, what if I breathe in my nose into my diaphragm and slowly out through my mouth? Oh, wait. The same thing you use in singing is basically basic meditation exercises. So it was, I don't purport to tell you what meditation will do for you, but I guarantee you if you do it, you will find some revelations.
Yeah. And then what about starting a charity? That was an interesting one too. Do you know kind of like the process behind that, or have you started a charity?
So I have definitely looked into it. I have started the beginning processes of it, and I'm going to be talking more about this between now and the end of the year. We just want to make sure everything is together. We also want it to be a B Corp, or I'm turning my skincare company into a B Corp. So we want to kind of announce everything together, and so it takes a little while, but very, very inexpensive, and very, like, even starting a business out in San Diego is $75. You go down to the town hall in Encinitas and tell them you want to start a business. They'll hand you a one-sheet piece of paper that you fill out, and you pay them $75 and you have a business. And so I feel like if you want to turn that business into a charity, it's really easy to do that. And it's also another way, like we talked about before, about okay, how do we change things? How do we get our power back? How do we feel like we're doing something important? That's a really good way to do it. I mean, if you have the means and that's something that you've always wanted to do, I like putting things in people's hands. Like, you can donate to a charity or you can start one. You know what I mean? Like, it can be up to you. And I have a few friends who've done it, and it's really rewarding. I mean, many different causes, from animal rescue to health and wellness to there's so many beautiful, beautiful things you can do when you take the initiative, right? And I think it's just another thing that people don't think is up to them. It is. Somebody started all those other charities, a person.
Yeah, that's so true. So did your business kind of start out by being just a basic business, or did you start with a website and then build it into a business?
Yeah, so I started with the organiclifeblog.com, which was my blog. And then when I started charging for features and doing campaigns, and when people started reaching out to me, I was like, I should probably incorporate this into a business, because I'm I don't know, it just made a lot more sense to me, because I was doing everything under the business name, and without it actually being a business, I felt a little weird about that. So the Organic Life LLC, I started in 2015, and then every one of my other companies is under the LLC. So really, even if you have multiple passion projects, you can start one company and then sort of umbrella it in. My skincare company is under the Organic Life, my blog's under the Organic Life, everything I do individually as a person is under the Organic Life, my music will be, taxed under the company, everything. So I feel like, you only need to start one, and then you can sort of see where it goes from there, because it's turned into literally my whole entire life.
Yeah, I find that a lot with a lot of my media clients and things like that. I think people get so confused between their personal brand and their business brand, and then they try to start 3 different business brands, and then it just gets out of control and crazy. And I feel like they don't really realize that the brand is really themselves, and then all of these other little things they start. It took me a while to learn that too. So that's a challenge.
It is, yeah, and call it whatever you want. That's the thing too. It's just like, it's not gonna matter. Like, don't agonize over what the name is, because other than on your tax forms, no one's gonna see it. You can call it like whatever you want after that, really. So I feel like people get stuck on the little minutiae, like, but I don't know what it is, and I don't know what to, like, I learned everything on Google. I swear to God. I was like, dude, what's the difference between an LLC and like all the other kinds of companies? And, you know, just figuring out what is best for what you're trying to do is like, but it's 2 hours of research, and then they'll answer when you go down there to file your company name. You can ask them anything you want. They're happy to answer all your questions. I probably asked them like 50 questions. I was like, wait.
Oh, that's so awesome. And then how did you slowly grow your social media? Was that a big part of it?
I would say it's been a really big part of it. I've gotten a lot of press, luckily, that's linked back to my social media, and I think that's been a big thing. I also just recently started doing promotions on Instagram when my book came out for like book launches and things, which is amazing because you can target. Like when I was in Florida, I'm like, okay, I only know like 5 people in Florida, but I can promote this event to people in Florida through my Instagram promotions and Facebook promotions. So you can target specific areas, and I think it's a really cool way to grow locally too, because you can literally target San Diego or certain cities around you if you're having like a local event or you want a more local following. And that's been really helpful to me too. Like when I had my book launch in San Diego, we had a few hundred people come by, and that was I think that was a lot of that was target marketing that way. So it's been I don't know, there's so many different ways to grow it, but I just feel like if you get out, like I do interviews like this every single day, and I'm always like writing for other for other like magazines and websites and platforms, and it's just get out there, you know what I mean? Like I think that's the most organic way to do it, because you never know who's gonna see something like this, or you never know who's gonna see something you write, or I don't know, it's just I think it's really beautiful. And I get recognized more now in San Diego since I've been targeting and marketing locally, and so I think that's just, even if you don't see the results right away, you'll see it in other areas of your life. Like I'm like, oh, okay, that's a direct reflection of me marketing locally. Okay, maybe they didn't like the photo or say something or whatever, but they saw my face and they know who I am. And so I think that's a huge part of getting the word out there, you know?
Yeah, I think so many people don't want to start their business until they have every single thing perfect, or they don't want to create a video or do an interview because they don't know exactly what they would say. And I just try to like urge people all the time to just get out there and put something out there, but I feel like they're just so hesitant to like just start and put anything out there. And then once you have 10 or 20 things, then start to see, is there a pattern? Do people like certain things? Like, I feel like people are just so stuck at that beginning stage. I don't know. So if you had $1,000 and you had to start a new business or start your business over, like what would you do with that $1,000?
So I think the thing, especially because so I've never gotten any investment in business. I have no investors. I have no credit cards. I've taken no money. I have no debt. And that I would do the same exact thing over. But what I would do if somebody had given me $1,000 when I started my business, because nobody did, is split it up and figure out exactly where all of it's going. And I feel like when people do get investments finally, or they do start making money, they don't do that. They see it as a big, large chunk, and then they don't kind of split it up and then it disappears. And so I would probably put like, I don't know, $200 towards marketing, $200 towards products, like a few hundred here towards like, you know, maybe hiring somebody, or, you know, it really just depends on what you need in that moment. But I would definitely split it up and then save what I didn't need at the time, because I'm a money hoarder. So.
Well, that's not a terrible thing. I love that. So where can we buy your book? Can we buy it here in San Diego?
Yeah, it's at local Barnes & Noble in San Diego, and it's at wildhabitsbook.com. If you want to sign a copy, you can buy it directly from me, and I'm happy to send it to my local San Diego peeps. Those are my favorite customers.
All right, so I have some rapid fire San Diego based questions for you if you're ready for them.
Sure.
All right, so it's 5 p.m. and you're stuck on I-5. Do you listen to podcasts or music?
Music.
All right, and what about tacos or sushi?
Tacos.
And beach or boating?
Ooh, beach, because I get sick on boats.
Me too. I definitely
I almost forgot about that until somebody mentioned the other day they were on a boat and everybody got real sick, and I was like, oh yeah, I get super sick on boats.
I'm actually going on a boat ride tonight. I have a motion sickness patch that I wear, so I stick it on my ear, and I'm going on a gondola cruise in Coronado, so we'll see how that goes.
Enjoy, girl. You and your
Okay, so if you had to attend one and stay the entire time, would you rather go to Del Mar opening day or to the Big Bay Boom fireworks show on the 4th of July?
Oh my God. Did you say Del Mar Fair opening day?
Del Mar opening day at the racetrack.
Oh, or the fireworks. Probably the fireworks. Yeah.
Okay, I know it gets crazy. It's like mad chaos in both of those places, so. And then would you rather prefer stop signs or roundabouts?
Roundabouts.
I know this is a huge controversy in a few areas of San Diego right now, so. And then would you rather have a vacation rental home and be able to have the income for that? Or do you think it's better to protect the homeowners in San Diego and make sure that no one can rent like Airbnb and that type of thing?
So I've shown up to all the meetings about short-term vacation housing rentals, and I think there's a happy medium. Like, honestly, I think some people should be able to come here and rent out someone's house if they really want to, but there should definitely be more regulations than what there currently are, because this whole like monopoly of people buying out entire neighborhoods and turning them all into Airbnbs is not good for the future of San Diego. People already see us as a vacation town, and we're going to turn into a vacation town if people don't live here. So.
And what about protecting the La Jolla sea lions or allowing people to actually go on the beach there?
Protect the sea lions!
And then what about the last question? If you had to do one of these, would you rather hike all the way to Potato Chip Rock, which is like 9 miles, or would you rather go to a beach class in Coronado? They have like a spin beach class.
Ooh, girl. I'd probably do spin beach class. Potato Chip Rock is played out.
I know, it's pretty oversaturated now. It's pretty crazy.
It's gonna fall off. Some kid is gonna be up there the day it decides to not be Potato Chip Rock anymore. I'm just saying. Like, I'm not trying to be that person.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me all about your new book, Wild Habits. I'm gonna definitely tell as many people as I can. I love it, and it'll continue to change so many lives. I know it. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, babe, for having me. I had such a blast. I always have such a blast talking to you.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon.